Hey everyone, how are y'all doing? It's your favorite guy living alone out in the wilderness. I hope you're all having a great Tuesday. I've just got some random stuff to throw at you here, some observations and some really weird experience I had last night. Well, technically this morning, but yeah, let's just get right into it. So, you all know how I feel about clouds, waterfalls, pandas, all these things that aren't what they're telling us. I know one of the really big um, things nowadays, one of the topics is I guess, what you would call old world or Tartaria, about how this country was basically found in the condition it was in and it wasn't built, not by what you would call Americans at least, um, that it was an existing civilization that was probably wiped out during a reset. And I want to get into the reset too. Let me make a note of this real quick. My take on, because during that time period when they were talking about, there were airships and they had free energy, and these towers had bells in them that were frequency bells for healing. They were healing centers and all that. There's a couple of other items that are mentioned a lot that don't, I haven't seen a lot of deep dives on it. I'm sure somebody's probably covered it. But one thing that I wanted to bring up that just hit me the other day was, I remember there was a series called Hell on Wheels several years back, and it was basically about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, and how they had Chinese slaves that were building it, and there was like competing railroads that were trying to get, I don't know, west of the Rockies, or I don't know what the narrative is, but it's allegedly based on a true story of how the American railroads were built. I'm convinced that the railroads were here when this country was found. They were already here. Um, I think there was a lot of rail transportation going on in the prior version of civilization here in North America. So yeah, I never bought the story. They brought these Chinese slaves over and they made them, and there was a big race for who could get to the finish line quickest, and it's nonsense. The I think the trains, I think they designed the trains basically to fit on the rails. It wasn't the other way around. And I think that the trains that utilized those rails initially were far superior to the crappy coal burning locomotives that they started off with after they quote unquote built the rail lines. That's just something I thought about. There's no way that those rail lines were built by Chinese slaves. It's ludicrous. Um, they were already here. Most of the infrastructure was already here. Um, I believe it's Lewis and Clark when they got, no, maybe not Lewis and Clark. Some explorer who went out west, in their notes or their journal, mentioned that when they got to what's modern day San Francisco, that it was fully built out. Like they just came up over a hill and there's just this city. It was empty. There was no people, but it was fully built out. So to say that like we had, but they had all this infrastructure, but we need to get a bunch of Chinese slaves to build a rail line, I think is nonsense. The rail lines were here already. I could be wrong. I don't think I am though, but it'd be interesting to know your comments or your thoughts if you think that the American race to build the intercontinental railroads is just a nonsense story and that they were already here. Like I said, I could be wrong, but the way everything else is leading, I don't think that there's much probability that those rail lines weren't here and we invented them. I mean, come on. But in that same vein, I was going to talk about the reset, and there's two topics on the reset that I kind of think explains everything. And again, I don't know. Somebody may have covered this. I'm sure they have. A lot of people have content creators that pretty much focus only on the old world and Tartaria type mud flood stuff. But two things that fit into that category is one, the Cabbage Patch Babies. And I think that's a form of mockery where they came out with these Cabbage Patch Kids that they, before the internet, but they went viral in a non-internet sort of way where people were like beating the hell out of each other to get these Cabbage Patch Kids and, rushing the stores as soon as the doors opened. It was like this weird frenzy that I don't understand how they get people under that type of mind control where the media just pushes a specific thing and suddenly you just have to have it no matter what. And you look at, and they're ridiculous, but the Cabbage Patch dolls are absolutely ridiculous. And they all came with their own birth certificates. I mean, it was a form of mockery because there really were such things. Now, I'm not saying that these kids were born like in cabbages. That's not what I'm saying. When I explain my theory, you'll understand where I think these kids actually came from. Why they called them Cabbage Patch Babies, I don't know. I think even the incubator baby thing, I don't even think that's quite what happened. That might be something completely different. That might have been something where they were, I don't know what the incubator babies, what that was all about, but it was really creepy how they were literally had these incubator baby storefronts at these world fairs, which is a whole other story. And that you could basically just go in and like, I guess, shop for a baby that was in an incubator and take it home. I mean, it was insanity. When people talk about the good old days, now the past was crazy. There was just as much nonsense and weirdness and creepiness going on in the 1800s and before than as now. I mean, don't think that everybody was pure. And I mean, I think the average person was obviously in way better shape because of the food they ate and everything, and they hadn't started poisoning everything. So I think they were, health-wise they were fine, but there was a lot of creepy perverts and degenerates even back then. I mean, selling babies like in an open air market is insane. Like where would you just get all these babies? Like there's no, excuse me, about the mom and dad. Like, I mean, nobody seemed to care. They just were glad they could go buy a baby, I guess. But that being said, so the quote unquote incubator babies, the Cabbage Patch Babies, and the orphan trains. And then the other piece of the puzzle is something else that was massive back then and is now no longer in existence, but the structure still exists. They could reopen them and use them again for what they used them for previously, or just build new, more modern versions. But back in the 1800s, these asylums or sanitariums were huge. Like every state pretty much had at least one, and these things were no joke. In some cases, I would even imagine that square foot wise, the local state asylum was the largest, if not close to the largest building in the state. These like the Waverly Asylum and some of these ones in Pennsylvania and stuff, these buildings are massive. They housed, I think, thousands of people. And so you say to yourself, well, like, why would they need buildings that big? Were there that many crazy people that were just on the loose? Well, if there's a reset and they rewrite history and change the narrative, there's a lot of people that are going to go, no, I'm not playing ball. That's not what happened. I think that's where they were sent, was to the asylums or the sanitariums, and probably electroshock therapy and lobotomized to forget their past so that there was no record of the way it was. But all these people that were basically locked up and lobotomized, many of them, and there's probably, if you take all the asylums nationwide and how massive these things were and fill those with people, you're talking, I would say at least 1 million people that were probably didn't want to go along with the new historical lie and the new narrative that were locked up. A vast majority of those people would have children. So if you lock up the parents because they're not going to play ball, what do you do with the kids? suddenly you're stuck with tens, hundreds of thousands of orphans and babies. That's weird. So they basically spread these kids out all over the country, and probably, if not had a very, very low price range, were possibly just given away, because I mean they had a overabundance of babies and children that they had to do something with. I'm sure some of them at really dire fates, especially if nobody would quote unquote adopt them or buy them or take them into their home. Then yeah, I mean, so I think the orphan trains and all that stuff of the narrative, they're like, where'd all these kids, it's pretty obvious their parents were all institutionalized for not going along with the story, and all the kids, they had to do something with them. So they had incubator babies, and I'm having trouble with incubator babies, Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever, and orphan trains. I mean, they're all the same thing. They just had an inordinate amount of children that they had to home and spread out and get rid of, because the children would be too young to recall, like, oh no, we had like flying airships, and they don't we had free energy. The kids wouldn't know that, but the parents were all lobotomized. Probably a lot of them were just executed. Electroshock therapy, whatever, probably experimented on. I mean, they had these people that they didn't want anymore because they weren't going to go along with it. So it was probably open season. Those sanitariums and stuff, probably it was like the Wild West, like the real Wild West. There wasn't actually a Wild West the way it's portrayed, but the real Wild West, where it was just like, yeah, here's all your patients, have at it. Oh, one of my dogs just came in. How you doing, girl? How you doing? You're such a sweet girl. Okay, and so that's kind of my take on the railways. What? And the asylums and the influx of all these children who had no parents, oddly enough. I wish now, and this is kind of how they get you. Like my grandparents, I think they were born like in the first decade of the 1900s. Like I think my grandparents on my mother's side, I think they were maybe born in like the 1910s or something. If I'd have known now or then what I know now, of course, I think my grandpa died when I was 13. So this is quite a while ago. I would love to have talked to some of those people, like my grandparents, and really started asking some questions, because clearly we've been lied to, but like it was just long enough ago to where nobody would have been alive back then, but they may have heard something. But then again, like their grandparents couldn't really tell them a story about what it was really like, because they were kids at that point. And so because of the fact that I think that they locked up a lot of these adults and then doled out the kids, I think a lot of people's ancestry, quote unquote, is made up. I think if you go to, because I mean, they could really only trace you back to like that point in the reset where everybody was displaced. You're not going to, if some kid was on an orphan train and ends up in somebody's house as their, adopted daughter, they're not going to be able to find out her past. It kind of starts right there. And so everything beyond that child would be kind of, they're not going to say, oh yeah, your great grandmother and grandfather, they were both stuck in an asylum and lobotomized. So they're going to make up everything from that point on. So I think a lot of that ancestry.com and 23andMe garbage, that was clearly just to get people's DNA, to get a database of your DNA. And I think they probably used it on the C-19 jabs, the information that they got from different peoples and cultures' DNA, because people willingly gave it up like absolute retards. But it was also the results that people got back where it traced their lineage back to like the 1600s. I think it's all made up. I think they had like templates. A lot of people probably got the same exact ancestors that like they just sent the same, somebody in Michigan and somebody in Kentucky. They just sent them the same. Oh, your great grandfather was named blah, blah, blah. And he did. I think they probably just had like a certain number of template scenarios and they just shipped them out and said, yeah. And so it was accurate up to like maybe their great grandparents. And then it just was all nonsense. So those people basically gave up their DNA to complete strangers for who knows what reason to get basically a fake family tree out of it. So that's fantastic. That was good thinking on their part. I do give credit to the enemy. It's very, very wise. I mean, they fooled 90% or above of the people. So they're good at what they do. But so, and that kind of brings me to the topic of what I call, and I'm sure other people call, you've probably heard it before, useful idiots. And basically what a useful idiot is a person or a group that you use to push an agenda. And then once that agenda either transpires or it looks like it's going to fail, we're going to switch to something else. They have no use for those useless idiots anymore. And back in the day, what they used to do was, let's say you had a group and they, called themselves, I don't know, BLM or Antifa, something, just they had a name and they had an agenda and they were pushing something for basically handlers. Once it was over and it worked or didn't, doesn't matter. They would just basically execute them all. They'd get rid of them because you didn't want anybody to down the road come out and be a quote unquote whistleblower and say, hey, this whole thing, actually, it was all pre-planned. They hired us, they paid us, they gave us all the stuff we needed and told us what to say. They can't risk that. So they would just off those people once they were no longer of any use. And so the term that I've always heard for that is useful idiots. And so we've got them today too. We've got the, what people would call like the liberals pushing their agenda, like the whole, people really need to, well, before I get to that. And then the other one is like the trans. Okay. That thing's losing steam and it's not going over. I mean, they had some momentum and now people have like trans fatigue. They're done with it. Those people are either going to be just done away with. And nobody would miss them. Like if you have somebody that's got like 18 facial piercings and like blue and orange hair and they're fat and they wear like stupid clothes and stuff. If that nobody's going to go, hey, whatever happened to Tina? Because what they're really thinking is, thank God Tina's not around anymore. I couldn't stand that thing. So, I mean, they could off them. Or these people are going to realize maybe that they were duped and now they've cut off their ween and like have giant holes in their nose or their earlobes, and they're just like facial tattoos and they're just a mess. So their life's pretty much shot. Like good luck getting any sort of job. You're just done. Those are the useful idiots. But what people have to understand is how much of this world is fake, which is like pretty much all of it. Yeah, just all of it. Yeah. So when you see these like TikTok videos of people saying something that is like clearly designed to push buttons, especially after this natural weather phenomenon in Texas, where allegedly a Christian school full of young girls are all missing or whatever the story is. And then you get these, I don't know, TikTokers, Instagram, X, I don't know what these people, where these things come from, but come on, they're basically saying good. Those little girls were probably racist. They deserve, that kind of thing. And you've seen it. And then you get the outrage from the other side going, this is what the liberals are really like. Look what they're saying about these young girls. First of all, you don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. You have to understand how much of this world is fabricated and scripted. There very well could have been a church camp full of just white girls, which right there, kind of weird. because they made it a point to say that just young white girls only in Texas, which is highly Hispanic, to put it mildly, that you would have a camp just for girls or white girls. Like if a Hispanic family was like, we'd really, we're Christian, we'd really love to send our, nope, no, too brown. I mean, to me, the story starts off super sus. But these quote unquote influencers or whatever they are, one-offs, who knows, that make these posts where they're, I mean, they don't even, I mean, the fact that they put their face right in the camera and say this stuff, those are actors. Those people are doing, they don't feel that way. Or maybe they do, but that's, I mean, they didn't make the video because of that. They made the video because somebody paid them to make the video. But people have to understand that these, everything's fake. And especially if it's designed to emote a strong emotion or like outrage or pride, it's fabricated. Okay. They play both sides. They get the liberals mad at Trump, and then they get the patriots mad at the liberals, when all of them, it's just a LARP. They're participating in a LARP. And it's just another version of COVID, where they have the problem, reaction, solution, where they push a narrative and then the majority jump on board to the point where they disown family members and file for divorce. I mean, these people are really vested in what's literally a LARP. None of it's real. And so the other one that's going on right now that people, it literally baffles me that in 2025, so many people don't yet understand how this realm operates. It's mind-boggling when all you have is evidence of what this world is and how it runs and who controls it. The latest narrative is, and I saw this coming when Elon came out, and suddenly him and his bestie were scrapping, had a beef, and Elon said the Epstein list won't come out because Trump's on it. Okay, that the reason they did that was to lead up to what's happening now, which is this America party. Elon wants a third political party. Hello, how did you not see that the little scuffle between Trump and Elon was completely fabricated, and that there was an agenda behind it? Now they're going to come out with a third party because of the people who side with Elon and go, yeah, Trump is on, he won't release the file because he's, and so it's going to legitimately probably happen, and there'll be three political parties. And here's the thing. The people that are sucked into the matrix and believe nonsense, they're going to go, oh, that's just going to take votes away from my party. No. Okay. Again, it's mid 2025. Okay. Take that into consideration when you think about the fact that none of this is real. Okay. They've given you enough. They've told you directly, basically, that votes don't count. Your vote is not counted. The only way it's counted is that they put a check mark next to the word consent when you cast a ballot. They go, oh, this person's on board. They consent to the B system. So once you consent to the system, then whatever happens after that, you're partially liable for whatever is coming because you consented. So that's all they want is your consent. I guarantee you, the second you cast your ballot, boom, straight to a trash can. You have a world where they're poisoning your food, your water, the air, cosmetics, home products. They're trying to kill you, vaccines, every possible angle they can come at you to poison you, they are. But they're going to give you a choice on who leads you and what laws are passed. And yeah, they're going to give you a voice. Are you kidding me? They want you dead. But the one thing that is real is when you cast that ballot, if you put down Trump, one Trump vote is counted. You got to be kidding me, right? These people are literally functionally retarded. Like they can drive, they can go to work, they can like turn on their TV, tie their shoes, but that's about it. I mean, NPC is a really good term. I know a lot of people like NPC, you know, it's a real thing. I think people started kind of shitting on NPC using that term for a while. I think it's kind of on the upswing now. I think enough people are starting to realize that, yeah, there's like literally like these autonomous, like brain dead zombies who look human. They act human sometimes. I mean, if you have the eyes to see, you can pretty much tell that. I think they walk weird myself. There's always something off on their facial features. It could be like real obvious, or like their eyes too far apart, or it could be a little more subtle. But there's definitely, and I've said this for a long time, nothing has happened to change my mind that there are non-humans that walk amongst us. I'm not going to say they don't have souls, because that's a claim that like I couldn't back up. Do I believe they have souls? No, but I'm not gonna make a claim. But there's definitely some questionable individuals out there. And here's another thing. All right, let's see. I want to cover stuff before I get into the most recent. Trump Epstein voting is fake. No shit. And what's really mind blowing, if you really want to know like how deep the spell goes, is look at the Trump supporters. Now, there are people who, I mean, there's a handful that are jumping ship. They finally seen the light, even though a lot of us have been telling them for years who and what Trump really is. This latest thing with Epstein and the way Trump, let's just say, behaves in regards to Israel, a lot of people, the light finally came on and they're starting to understand. And there are a handful that have jumped ship. Like they've come out and, I guess, publicly stated that they're no longer MAGA. Well, MAGA is the highest level of satanic witchcraft. So good for you. I'm glad you're out of there. But there's a lot who are just kind of, I don't know what you'd call them, kind of fence sitters. Like they're kind of calling out Trump, but they're not going to commit to like admitting who and what he really is. They're still on the Trump train, but they're kind of hanging like one foot in one arm, and they're kind of hanging off the back of the Trump train. But they haven't committed to taking that last step and jumping off the train. And then there's the apologetic, you just don't understand. He's playing 4D chess. Those guys trust the plan. He has to play ball in order to lure the deep state into his trap. I mean, those people are gone. If you come across anybody who's wearing like a Trump hat or, you know, got a Trump flag on their car and they haven't scraped it off yet at this point, I would just avoid them. Don't engage. It's like, it's like, what are these? There's some saying about wrestling a pig or something. You just end up smelling like pig shit, or I don't know what it is. Something humorous, but that's basically what it is. It's like wrestling a pig. You're not, even if you win, you're still covered in pig shit in the end. So don't even go there. It's more like, remember The Mask a few years back, or even now. I mean, some of them are really gone. Whenever I saw somebody with that, or, you know, the double, or they got one on while they're driving by themselves, all I thought was avoid at all costs, and I moved on. It's like, I'm not going to engage. That's ridiculous. That's how you end up on some viral video, which isn't good. You don't want to end up on a viral video, almost no matter what it's for. And that's another thing you notice. I'm going to bounce all over here. Is all these things that you see on like TikTok. I don't have TikTok. I've said this a million times, but I do watch YouTube where people do like compilation videos, and most of them are compiled from TikTok videos. First of all, from the outside looking in, I would just say, without a ton of knowledge about it, that TikTok is top 5 most evil things going right now. TikTok has turned people into, I don't know what. almost everything I've seen on TikTok is fake. They're scripted, set up videos, and there's tells like where the camera's at, how many camera angles are recording it, that it's clearly not an organic event that happened in your kitchen. You've got 3 different camera angles, and it's obvious. These are scripted with the intention of it looking real and like, oh, look what just happened. How crazy. All of them are completely fake. And another tell is, especially when it's something like terrifying or scary or dangerous or heartbreaking, or somebody's just beside themselves with grief because something horrible. When not only the first thing they think of, but like a lot of times during the actual event that's taking place, their first thought is to get their camera out and record a TikTok video while it's happening, or just after. I mean, come on. That's not reality. That's not how a human being would operate. And especially like the ones where something really tragic happened, and like maybe you lost a child or your best friend or your sister. The first thing you're going to do is get on there while you're crying and make a TikTok video. Are you kidding me? That's like those, when there's like a missing person, like say, a young boy is suddenly missing and they put out like an Amber Alert, and suddenly the media's all over it, and they're trying to find little Bobby, and the parents go on TV. Okay, to me, something that's not reality. I don't know what's going on. Is their kid really missing? I don't know. Probably, maybe. But the fact, look, if I had say a 7-year-old daughter and she was clearly missing, abducted. I mean, there's no doubt somebody took this kid. I'm going to be I'm not going to be talking to the media. I'm not going to be giving interviews. I would be in a state where I would be uninterviewable. There's no way. You're going through the worst trauma of your life, and you're like, yeah, stick a camera in my face for all the world to watch. And whatever I say or do, I don't really have control right now because emotionally, I'm screwed. This video will be out there forever. People can go back to it. I could say something that people go, aha, I think he's sus. I mean, there's just too many. There's no way that like emotionally. I mean, if I was in that situation and like the news, first of all, I wouldn't answer the phone unless, I'd have somebody else do that in case it was, maybe it was a ransom or some kid, maybe on the off chance. Normally they just take the kids out, do something horrible to them and kill them. But I'm not going to answer the phone and yeah, this is Sally at KDUM. We'd like to, I'd be like, go stick it up your ass. I hang up. I'd like block caller. I'm like, I'm not talking, let alone letting them come to my house. You sit on the couch with your spouse next to you and they start putting cameras in your faces and asking you questions. Like, no, that's not reality. It's the same as with like when people have to look at the little details. Like have you ever asked yourself whenever there's like a quote unquote school shooting or some event like that they always get either like the public information spokesman, or it's usually like the sheriff or the chief that gets up on the podium to give you like the deets and like keep you up to date on what's going on. And there's always like, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 8 people standing behind other like police officers, just standing there with like their hands folded in front of them and just looking straight ahead, like a wall of just blank looking autonomous police officers with no purpose, just standing behind the person talking. Why? It makes no sense. It's to me, I think it might be a sign to I don't know what you want to call them, the cabal, the controllers, the elite, the Jesuits, whatever you want to call them, Jews, whatever. I think it's a message to them. If you see the wall of blank faced law enforcement standing behind the guy with their hands crossed in front of their junk. I think that's a signal, something like, okay, this is us. This isn't real. This is another one of our psyop narratives. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't make any logical sense. Like if that had never ever happened ever, and the first one allegedly happens, and you're like in charge, and you're like, you know what, we need to get the police chief up there to calm the people and let them know that they're on it. What was that, Gary? A line of other cops just standing behind him for no reason? Brilliant. Let's do that. Like, that would never occur. Nobody would do that. So I think these are a lot like tells that it's not real. It's a psychological operation. And watch the next one that happens and look at the people standing behind. And sometimes they even get caught laughing. Like, there's a couple where, like, the guy talking, the chief or the captain or whoever they stick up there, says something about, like, the death toll or, something kind of grim. And there'll be, like, one of the guys behind him, like, he breaks character and like, snickers. Like, like, it's like, I mean, it's called Duper's Delight, where they're just up there effing with you, and they all know that there was no event that took place. And I think they get like a boner knowing that, like, everybody's falling for their nonsense. It's really creepy. But what was the C? Useful Idiot's been there. I was going to talk about the one that's really been bothering me lately that I'm 100% convinced of. I don't know if people are ready for it, or you can let me know. If people want to hear me talk on this, let me know. But I'll just tell you what the topic is for now. I'm not going to get into it because I have something else I want to talk to you about. And that is that the entire Revolutionary War narrative, 1776, 100% fabricated, false, nonsense fiction. It's actually, when you start looking into it, it's so absurd that it's laughable. And you've got people that are, Patriot, 1776, the 1%. I mean, they're like all in. And it's like being like changing your entire lifestyle based on like an episode of Friends. That's like how real the whole 1776 narrative is. And people like base their life on, like, I'm a patriot. And it's quite fascinating. But if you want me to get into what nonsense the Revolutionary War narrative is, I'll be happy to. I probably won't do it right now, but if that's something people are interested in, we can start pointing out the nonsense points of what happened with our founding fathers back in 1776. It's like literally nonsense. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was, all right, so last night, there's a subscriber on this channel that he's like an early adapter of this. I've known him for a long time, and we have each other's phone numbers, and we talk and text and everything. And last night he wanted to run something by me, and he's like, yeah, this is too long for text. Can I call? So long story short, I get on the phone with him, and how your phone has a counter. Well, at the end of the phone call, when we looked and we'd been talking, it was like 5 hours and 23 minutes. It was like insane. And we covered a ton of topics, and I got a lot of really good information from him. He's really good with historical facts and individuals who were actually responsible for certain events that you think were real, but they were completely fabricated. Our history is 99% fabricated. They'll throw a truth in every now and again. Just, it's like Alex Jones, where he'll tell 10 things that are real and then one clear fabricated agenda lie. And then people will believe that because the other 9 things were true. Why wouldn't this, so they just go, it's just a tactic that they use for their COINTELPRO operatives that are used. There's no, like, I don't want to say podcaster, but like people like the Alex Joneses and the Tucker Carlsons and the Stupi, what's his name? Stu Peterson. Is that Stu somebody? Whatever. Those people are all intelligence assets. They're not real truthers. Okay, you'll find some that mean well. They might be misled because they don't have all the information or they're new at it, the baby truthers, but their heart's in the right place. But they're not going to be like they're never going to be on the big stage. They're going to be like someone that you listen to and maybe you've told a couple friends and they've got, 40,000 subscribers or something and they're dropping like legit truth. But the big stage, the Tucker Carlson's, is it Stu Peterson? Is it Stu Peters? Oh, yeah, I think it's Stu Peters. The Alex Joneses, the who else is there? Those guys. They're not. If you like listen to Alex Jones, you're an absolute idiot. And I think when the end comes, you're gonna look back and go, "Holy crap! I wasted like a really big chunk of the time I had here listening to a sweaty meatball lie to me and pretending that he was dropping truth." So, but anyway, so me and this friend were talking, like I said, for like 5.5 hours. Well, one of the topics that came up, and we covered a lot. One of the topics we came up with was the luminaries, the stars, the sun, the moon, and he has seen 2 suns. I have not. He sees the sun as white. I told him I was gonna look today because I don't think it's white where I'm at. So basically, what I was getting at was it's almost like, and I said this before on a video, and I don't know how this would work, but like different areas are seeing different things. It's almost like they have whatever's in the sky, sun, 2 moons, I don't know, whatever. It's almost like it's just for that area, like a certain radius. Because I believe him 100% that he's seen what he says he's seen. I haven't seen it, and I have a really good view of the sky, and I do a lot of sky watching. Not as much in the daytime as I used to in the daytime, and I'd see things too flying around even in the day. But I'm too busy. It gets hot or it's really cold. I'm not out looking up at the sky in the day. But at night, I have a great viewing area, and I really have always been a big night sky viewer. And I haven't seen 2 moons. I haven't seen, but I have seen things or noticed things. But this isn't new. I've noticed this from like, I don't know, 2012, 2014. I was noticing these same things. And the funny thing is, a lot of times I mentioned these things back then, and it was like crickets. It wasn't even like people were like, "Oh, you're nuts," or BS, or it was like cricket. Like literally, I would say, "Hey guys, I don't know if you're paying attention, but like the location of the moon in the sky is making no sense. It's not following a circuit anymore." And it was just like literally crickets. But now people are starting to go, "Oh, have you noticed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 13 years ago." But, like I said, I'm glad you're on board. But so I was telling him how the moon, where it's at in the sky, no longer makes any sense because the sun, the moon, and the stars they were designed as a sky clock. They'll tell you the season and everything very accurately. If you know how to read it correctly, you can almost get like exactly like the day. But it doesn't work. The sky clock's broken. And I think on purpose. I think God's doing it. Obviously, it's his clock. I think he's trying to tell us, he's trying to wake people up that the luminaries are not doing what they've always done anymore. So I was like this, and this was, like I said, 2012, 2014. I was telling people, like, the moon is completely erratic now. I call it the shotgun moon because it could be anywhere at any time, and so I was discussing how the moon like circuits around, and it 28 days does it completes its cycle, and that the moon should be at the same time, same location every night. It should be pretty much where it was the previous 24 hours prior, just a little, I think, ahead, like basically to the west of where it was the night before, and then it just processes and eventually gets ahead. The moon, since I've been noticing, like what was it, 11 to 14, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. On any given night, it's a complete crapshoot where the moon's going to be. Like, I can go out on my deck at 10 o'clock tonight, and the moon will be, like, say, 40 degrees off the horizon to the southeast. I can go out at 10 o'clock tomorrow night and look, and the moon hasn't even risen yet. It's below the horizon. You can't even see it. Or it's like directly above me. Like, it was 40 degrees off the horizon. Now it's 90. It's literally, you have to turn your head and look straight up in the air and see the moon. It's all over the place. And then the other thing was the crescent moon. Growing up was never on the bottom of the moon like a smile. Never saw a crescent moon on the where the lit up crescent is on the bottom of the moon until probably maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. It's been fairly recent, less than 5 years. It was always on the side or kind of like at a 45-degree angle, on the bottom left or right side corner. It was never like bottom, like a smile. That's new. So I was talking to him about these things I'd noticed, and he notices them as well. But he said what he's noticed, and he really tracks it too, is that the moon now rotates. So imagine you have like a clock on your wall, and the 12 is at the top, and then you come back an hour later, and the 12 is now where the 1 was, and the 11 is now where the 12 was. So it's going clockwise, just slowly rotating. And he also said something about the man on the moon, the face on the moon or whatever. I've never been able to see the face on the moon. I never saw it. I couldn't see what people were seeing, but I did see to me, I see like a small bunny, like just the head and the ears. I've always seen like a rabbit on the moon. But so he was telling me this, and so I went out on the deck and I'm looking at the moon, and I see that kind of looks like a peace sign when you hold your hand up as a peace sign. It's like the bunny head with the 2 ears, but it was kind of it's at a cockeyed angle, like the ears are pointing kind of like down and to the right, like to the 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock position on the moon. So I look and I see it, and the bunny ears are almost like 1 o'clock. They're high up. They weren't straight up at 12, but like at 1 o'clock. So it's like a peace sign at just a little bit of an angle. And then, so we're talking, and I go back out and I look, and this was, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half later, and the little bunny peace sign was at the 3 o'clock position. So I'm like, damn, dude, you're right. The moon, it's rotating. It's not, just for those of you who don't know, according to the heliocentric model and how everything works, the moon isn't supposed to rotate. It's supposed to look exactly the same, like the positioning. It doesn't rotate, on the x-axis or the y-axis. It's just fixed, and you always see the same side, and everything's pretty much in the same exact orientation. Now it does a clockwise rotation, which is insane. So I wanted to share this with you. So I'll tell you the story first, then I'll show you the picture. So when I was sitting in my living room talking to him, I couldn't see the moon because through the window, it was just a little too high in the sky from the window. I could see the lit up clouds, and I could see the brightness coming into the window, but the moon itself was just high enough to where I couldn't. So I had to go out on the deck. So I walked out on my deck, and I got a photo of all this to show you where I was standing, what I saw. Let me just pull it up. Let me figure out how to do this. I don't want to, and I hope StreamYard changed something. Like, you can't do like an intro video anymore, or like I used to have like that They Live thing the last couple times I put on there. I hope I can do this. Let me see. The buttons don't tell me what they do, so I'm just going to push it and see what happens. Image file. Okay, this is the right button. All right. I'm going to put this image up here. Let me see if it pops up. Okay, let me see if I can just full screen this thing. Okay, so I took this today. Um, so last night there was like some wispy clouds. It wasn't very cloudy. They were just kind of wispy, and you'd get one like maybe, you know, it would cover the moon to where you couldn't see the moon, but you could still see the light, and it would move by in a few minutes. Most of the clouds you could actually see through them and still see the moon. So when I first went out last night, when he and I were talking on the phone, um, I was standing where this X is. That's where I would walk to, and I'd look, and it was at like where the number one, the moon there. That's basically when it first started. That's what I was looking at. This is probably a couple hours into our conversation, maybe 2.5 hours into our 5 hour conversation or whatever. So we were talking. I was like, I'm going to go out and see. And that's when I noticed, like up at the 12 o'clock position, like after like 1 o'clock, I saw the little peace sign bunny head thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So we were talking, and then I came back out, stood right here, and it was about where number 2 is, but the bunny ear thing was at the 3 o'clock, so it had rotated over, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And so we talked until 1:30 in the morning. When he hung up, I went in my backyard and I made a bonfire, and I sat back there and just basically chilled in the dark with the bonfire and the dogs. And at one point, right before I came inside, it was about 2:30 at this point, so it had been about an hour since we had talked. I was behind the house here, so I was like looking over the house, and I couldn't see the moon, but it was about, see how the 1 and then the 2, say there's a 3 the same distance. It was like there, but there was a big cloud in front of it because I just wanted to look at it and see if I could see if that bunny head peace sign had rotated even more. But it was behind a cloud. I could see its location right here, but I couldn't see the moon itself. So I was like, okay. So I went inside and I went to bed at 3:30. But right before I went to bed, I decided, okay, I'm going to give it one more shot and go out and see, because by now that bunny head should have rotated drastically, and it'd be like, okay, there's no doubt that the moon is now rotating clockwise. And so I went out on the deck, same spot right here on the X. There were no clouds. All the clouds had gone by. It was just solid black from horizon to horizon and stars. And there was no moon. It was gone. It wasn't, I don't know where it went. The moon was literally gone. I looked everywhere. No moon. Now, it had been an hour since the last time I saw it, so it should be about, if you take the distance between 1 and 2 and then go 3, 4, that's about where it should have been. So like this yellow Ottoman thing here sitting on this table on the deck right here, I have everything moved over here and piled up because I'm having somebody come over on Thursday to stain my deck. But so this yellow Ottoman here on the kind of the lower right, it's got the big tear in it. You can see the foam. The moon should have been, you see on the top of the Ottoman, there's like that dark spot. That's actually a piece of like concrete, or it's something I used to I put underneath the foot of the fire pit thing to raise it up, because like one of the legs is shorter. So that's like a little slab of concrete. The moon, an hour after, well, it'd be 2 hours after the phone call, an hour after the last time I saw it, should be like straight up from that black cube square sitting on top of the Ottoman. That's where the moon should have been, approximately. There was no moon, like literally gone. And like I said, it was cloudless, nothing but blackness and stars. The moon it's almost full. I don't know if it's waxing or waning right now, but it's about probably in the 90%, 90 something percentile. There's just the sliver on the left that's not illuminated. So it's a pretty full moon, and it was bright. There was nowhere for it to hide it. It was not in the sky. Like I said, when I was going out looking earlier, it was lighting up the clouds around it, and I couldn't see the stars very well because it was so bright. I'd have to turn around or look to the west or something to see a few more stars. But the moon was basically blowing out the sky. It was so bright. there was, like I said, there's nowhere it could have hidden. When I walked out there, the entire sky was pitch black with stars and no moon. And I was just like, I just went to bed. I'm like, you know what? It's late. I can't do it. I'm not, I'll think about this tomorrow. But I don't know. There's some really weird stuff going on in the skies. Um, I probably have a lot more stuff I could go into, but my throat hurts and I'm gonna go feed my dogs. So everybody take care. God bless. Peace.